Hi, this is Epic Web3 podcast. It's Alex, as always. I'm founder of Epic Web3. We make events for Web3 builders. Our next one is in Denver. I will be there myself. Hope to see you all there. All our five our listeners. Okay, maybe more this time because
Because
we
Jasper's
have.
here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as always, I'm here with Andy from the Roll Up. Andy, are you excited to speak about oracles a little bit?
Yeah, man. I had a good conversation with Jasper in the past. Very, very quirked up today on Modular. So having a great day and loving life. So hope that we have a good one. Welcome, Jasper. Welcome. Would love just kind of a quick intro about how you got here and what's going on.
Yeah, well, thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me. So I started my founder journey by dropping out of college in a very typical like tech founder fashion. I started initially in the data analytics space, and we were building on sort of like social platforms. We were building like data analytics. The thing that got me to make the jump into crypto was that what drove me crazy there was that the fact that every week or 2 weeks, these gatekeepers changed permissions on what data you could access. And that made it super hard to build sustainable products, right? So we were constantly just trying to fix holes and create solutions to all of a sudden getting cut off from certain data. And then the idea of smart contracts essentially being immutable interfaces or immutable APIs was super attractive to me because it empowers developers to build these super powerful network effects, right? You can, because you know the data will always be there. You have this concept of composability and modularity, which is completely new. And I think that the power that gives to third-party application builders is just incredibly great. Started off by doing some consulting, then ended up working indirectly for the Ethereum Foundation. We got a grant to build Plasma, which was like an L2 scaling solution, trying to get the TPS on ETH and L2s up a little bit. Plasma eventually became Rollups, and I met my co-founder, and we've been building like a bunch of different products in the space since early 20.
When you dropped out, did your parents give you shit?
They were surprisingly supportive. I basically told them like, hey, listen, I know what I'm doing, or like I don't, but if this fails, I'll just go back to college, I promise. And that actually ended up happening. So I dropped out, started a business, tried it for like 1.5 years, went okay, got frustrated, went back to college for 3 months, and then was like, no, I can't do this. So then pursued like the crypto, sort of like, I got because I taught myself over some time like how to write Solidity. And there were like very few Solidity developers back in 2017, 2018. So I was able to land some freelance gigs here and there and actually make some pretty decent money, probably more than I would have made if I would have finished my degree and started just, I don't know, like web designing or building websites or something. So at that point, they were quite supportive.
Nice. So you don't regret about anything?
Oh, come on.
Okay. So when I was getting ready for this pod, I did a lot of research. I did a lot of reading about SEDA, trying to understand what you guys are doing. It was a little bit tricky for me to understand everything, but we thought that we need to like simplify complex things in our pod a little bit. So can we start with some basics? And so as I understand, SEDA is an oracle, right? Can you give it just a brief explanation what an oracle is for just maybe
Yeah,
simple?
sure thing. So I think where it becomes like difficult to understand is that what an oracle is and how people understand oracle products. There's some asymmetry there. So if we take a step back, right, the name oracle is sort of like a category of products in crypto. And the name of that category stems back from a problem, as it was described, which was called the oracle problem. The oracle problem is that a smart contract or a blockchain only has access to the data that's on the blockchain itself. So it can only query data within its execution environment. That means that it heavily limits the use cases of what you can build on an L1 because it only has access to things that are in the environment, right? So you have products which are called oracles, which like data extensions that allow a smart contract to query data that would normally not be available to them. Yeah, it's like a data bridge. And then I get a little bit too excited about this sometimes, but like I think almost every product's an oracle. A bridge is an application-specific oracle. A price feed's an oracle. An AMM is essentially an oracle where you create incentives for people to arb the price on an AMM back to the prices on sexes through arbitrage opportunities. So I think that there's like infinite amounts of like oracle products in crypto. And what we're building is like an underlying infrastructure that allows people to permissionlessly access data from any smart contract. So I would describe it as like a data layer underneath crypto that can be queried from any smart contract.
Okay, it helps a little bit, but not much yet. So, how tell us how developers can utilize it. So what can they do with it? What is the use case?
Yeah. So there is a ton of use cases that require data today, like data outside of the blockchain's execution environment. Think lending protocols need price feeds, perps needs price feeds, bridges need cross-chain data. There is a ton of different products that can be built. A lot of them have not been discovered yet, I'm convinced of. So yeah, if you need a price of an asset and you launch an L1, you need to get that data. So historically, you'll need a oracle, which in today acts as like a kingmaker almost, or like a gatekeeper to deploy to your network and then start providing data there. We think that's backwards. It doesn't fit the philosophy of our industry. It doesn't fit the thing that I was explaining earlier that makes me excited about the space, which is empowering developers. So what we really try to do is build this network that can be queried from any smart contract without us having to deploy there. So essentially what you do to use SEDA is you deploy a smart contract that can parse our proofs. We generate data on our own network, and then some entity, whether it's you or us or like a MEV searcher or like a solver within another network, pushes that data to your chain and you have access. So that's sort of like how developers can use SEDA. It's like you need price feeds, you got price feeds. You need interoperability, you got interoperability. We're talking to a bunch of RWA projects who need like their notaries or I don't know, like certain attestations to be pushed to their network. You can use SEDA for that super easily. So that's sort of like how I would describe how developers can utilize this. It's essentially if you launch a rollup tomorrow and you don't have an oracle, you're extremely limited in the use cases that your rollup can power. We want to make sure you have that power to build these use cases, and that's why we built SEDA.
Yeah, people get confused with like this like data availability and data storage. Could you like maybe unpack that a bit, and also where SEDA kind of interplays with those two?
Yeah, I think it's like a third thing. I think SEDA is more of like a data transport layer, where a DA layer is like they prioritize like data availability and making sure that you can push your rollup state to that DA layer and that it's like valid and that type of stuff, right? In theory, you could do this with SEDA, but that like only like makes the borders more opaque or less opaque. I don't want to do that. So let's say that's like a separate thing. And data storage would be like an Arweave or something that's just where you can store data into perpetuity. You pay for it once and you know that will always be there. SEDA is a data accessibility layer. Like it makes data that would normally be unavailable to your network now available to your network. It's not meant as like this could be used for, but it's not meant, it's like a middleware, right? So what's really cool is one of the use cases we've been exploring, we've partnered with some IPFS providers, for example. You can store data from your smart contract on IPFS or Arweave directly through SEDA. So we're like the messaging layer that pushes the data from your network permissionlessly to the storage layer. And that's where the storage layer would be. Same with like Celestia, you could like push a smart contract state to Celestia through SEDA. So I would say that is the main difference, right? Like data ends up at Arweave or Celestia, but it goes through SEDA.
And is that like also off-chain to on-chain and on-chain to off-chain, or just on-chain to on-chain?
No, it could be either. It could be anything.
Okay.
Like, we don't dictate what plugs in on what side. It's like anybody can provide data to the network that then can be queried, and anybody can read the data.
And then what about the privacy of the data? How are you guys thinking about that?
It's a good question. I think since it's data is going to be pushed on chain anyway, I think that privacy is less relevant. For now, it's like data that's going to be publicized at some point anyway. However, we're talking to some teams that are doing like fully homomorphic encryption that want to build like fully homomorphic encryption on top of SEDA, and that would allow you to have data private until you want it to be public, essentially. So that there are use cases there that we are exploring. However, it's not top of mind right now. It's like more on the back burner. But yeah, it's on the list. But yeah.
Got it.
Is it is the SEDA different from, I don't know, other oracles like, I don't know, Chainlink, UMA, or something like this? So where are you in the competition spectrum?
Yeah, sure thing. So I think that there is like a few things that are important there, right? Like every protocol has trade-offs, and the trade-offs make it unique. It's not like we found like the magic solution that solved everything. We trade off certain things for other things. And I think for us, the most important thing is like the accessibility of the data. Chainlink is very bordered off, right? So they have like separate Oracle products for separate use cases, and they dictate what is and what they power where. And that's just the way they designed their system, right? So they have like price feeds, and they decide which chains they push the price feeds to. And if you want to add a new price feed to your chain, you're going to have to pay them. We don't think that is right. We don't like that model. It doesn't scale well horizontally. We tried it with our first party Oracle back in the day, and it just, it doesn't feel like a logical step in the evolution of the internet, where what we're building with SEDA feels like a way more logical step in evolution. Like UMA, I think you mentioned, is like an optimistic Oracle, which can answer subjective questions, right? So you can ask it a question and it will be crowdsourcing the data. So it's like an incentive mechanism for people to come together and give answers to questions that you ask this system, which as a trade-off is like, it's quite crypto-economically secure, but it's really slow. So that's their trade-off there. The Chainlink has an accessibility trade-off. UMA has a speed trade-off. We're like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's like this next generation of products that we've seen, especially in the modular space, also just in rollups and in general, kind of like breaking down this blockchain trilemma, if you will. I'm going to butcher it. I think it's speed, security, and decentralization or something. I think that's it. It's like trying to evade that without sacrificing the core principles of, I guess, just decentralized technology or distributed systems.
Yeah, it's like I think it's speed, cost, and decentralization. That's the trilemma, I believe.
Yeah, interesting. So practical implementations of SEDA, what does this look like in the modern day?
Yeah, I mean, it could be price feed. It could be interoperability. The cool thing, though, is that as soon as you deploy sort of like a feed on SEDA, it becomes accessible everywhere. So if you if you launch a rollup tomorrow and you make your RPC available to our network, now your network becomes interoperable with any other network that has an RPC available to our network. If you build you can just build your own interoperability in like a single deployment of a contract. I think it's super cool. Plus price feeds, plus any other data that you could possibly need for any use cases that you want to power. So yeah, it could be like anything DeFi, any interoperability, RWA. It's like a ton of potential use cases. It's hard to nail it down because it's quite a broad. I've called it the Ethereum for Oracle. So I'm giving like a talk about this, right? Like we don't know what the use cases will be that will be most prevalent using SEDA. But I think that the idea of like being able to deploy your own feeds and making them accessible everywhere is just going to enable a ton of interesting things that we've not seen before as well. Next to the sort of like lower hanging fruit of like obvious interoperability and price feeds solutions that you'd see today.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I got one more, and then I'm sure Alex has a bunch as well. Recently, UMA announced Oval, which is a Oracle extractable value, in which they operate in lending markets at the smart contract level. Basically, they put like a blocker contract in between Chainlink's price feed and I'm sure you're fully aware, but they basically put a blocker contract between Chainlink's price feed and lending market smart contracts for liquidations. The idea here is that lending markets are losing tons of value to Ethereum validators based on MEV that is captured on liquidation transactions, some up to the tune of multiple tens of millions of dollars each year, especially on Ethereum mainnet. So this idea behind Oval is, and these kind of OEV or Oracle extractable value products is to kind of figure out a way to capture that value, distribute it to the token holders of the said projects which are involved in this, or just distribute that somewhere other than just additional yield for Ethereum validators, which are almost doing nothing in a sense here. I mean, they're obviously they have stake that is subject to slashing, and they have monetary value, but the trade-off is less MEV rewards for these validators. But the idea that UMA is pushing, that something that I kind of stand behind, is like, yeah, we should try to figure out a better way to distribute this value. It's kind of a mouthful, but I'm sure that you understand this already at a deep level. Like, what is your thoughts with regards to Oracle extractable value? Is this a good way? Is there better ways? What's the future?
It's a fantastic way to earn money as a middleware, right? I think I have sort of like this thesis that value within the stack will slowly trickle up the application stack. So the first step is from L1 to middleware. At SEDA, we've been thinking about this for like almost 2 years now, OEV. We've been playing around with the OEV landscape and sort of like design options for like a while. I gave a talk at ECC about this. I think that there's a really, really good chance that Oracle services will be free in the future to use because of the MEV the Oracle creates. You can essentially subsidize the whole network and make it a public good. So that I'm super excited about. I think what UMA has done with Oval is super cool. However, there's some things that are not really defensible about it. And I told them this as well. So I think the implementation is a really great step in the right direction. We're looking to internalize our OEV solution. So essentially create an auction in parallel to our own network where you can auction off the right to background Oracle updates within SEDA itself. I think that makes a ton of sense. And then where that value flows is the question, right? So part of it will go to SEDA stakers, and part of it will probably go to the application, and then still some will go to the L1s or networks essentially. But I want to create sort of like an open market for that, where the exoticness of the strategy will essentially dictate where the value will flow. So you want to create like a competitive market there, but make it open. Yeah, no, I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think it's just the first step, right? So now it's like so you see like the L1 validators make all the money, then the middleware validators will make some of the money. But in the end, it will be the applications, because they have the users, which will probably make most of the money. So, and then I'm not even talking about Aave as a protocol. I'm talking about the front ends that build Aave interfaces that will, in the end, probably will be making most of the MEV through some sort of auction mechanism. And that's on everywhere. Any DeFi protocol will be the front ends in the end that have the users or the wallets that will be making most money.
When do you think we will come to this era when user focused apps are actually making money?
When chain abstraction becomes a thing.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, I read it. I read it on your Twitter, and actually had this question on my list to ask about chain abstraction. So what is it? Why are you excited about it?
Yeah. Okay. So as a user, we are all extremely hardcore users of like decentralized tech and dApps. Even you are. Yeah. If you're bridging your funds across chains in order to do something on that other chain, like I think in like 3 years, nobody will be doing that anymore. It's a crazy concept. It is as if you are using your browser and you need to like change your internet provider or like your internet like like your internet provider
protocol, like between TCP IP and something else.
Yeah, or like what would be a good one? Like it's as if you're switching through intranets and you have to like bridge some data from one intranet to another intranet, and now you're able to access Facebook because it's on the Facebook intranet. It's a crazy concept. It's there because the infrastructure was not ready. We did not know what sort of like a blockchain abstraction really looked like. But I'm pretty convinced that there's like a few teams out there that have sort of solved at least the macro design of what this should look like. And what it should look like is you have one settlement layer or liquidity layer that users interact with, and that has like some intent network built in, some intent L2, which then has like a solver network in the backend that's actually performing actions for the user on different L1s and proving that. It's one of the use cases. We're powering we're going to power a bunch of teams building similar solutions. And I think it's what I'm most passionate about. It's like what I'm most bullish about for the next like 3 years, probably.
What is the SEDA's role here in building chain abstraction?
Great question. So you have like 100,000 chains launching in the next like 18 months, probably. Like,
really,
as soon as you have like these, I think so. As soon as you like these one-click chain deployments, like what's stopping you from just creating like an ND chain or an LX chain tomorrow and just like, messing around with it, right? Like, why not? I think that where that hits a bottleneck is you're missing a ton of tools. If you just deploy ND chain or LX chain, that thing is isolated. It's like an intranet. So in order to make it plug into other blockchains, you need some sort of interoperability mechanism. And I think because SEDA is a permissionless Oracle interoperability mechanism that empowers all of these potential use cases, all you have to do is deploy a SEDA smart contract there, and all of a sudden you're fully connected to all of these chains. What this looks like from a technical standpoint in intent networks is, in an intent network, you have something called an execution proof, where as soon as a user posts an intent on the intent layer and that intent is executed on like ND chain, now the intent layer needs to know that that action was performed in order to unlock the reward for the solver that performed the action on the ND chain. So you need to have some sort of messaging mechanism, and I think SEDA is absolutely perfect for that, due to its permissionless nature. So that in the extent that we're talking to teams around chain abstraction, that's usually the role we see for ourselves and what other people want to use us for.
You mentioned some teams working on chain abstraction become real. Can you tell us some names?
Most of them are still stealth. But one of the teams we're talking to that I think have a really good roadmap for it is Near, who has a very, very strong conviction in this idea that we share with them. We're pretty close with them.
I saw the podcast they did on Empire, Blockworks, the founder. It was really good. Really like, whoa.
Yeah.
Another thing that I heard recently in a podcast with the guys from Omni Network who are building their open liquidity network is that the advent of shared sequencing or just extremely fast roll-up bridging, like I'm talking like milliseconds in terms of bridge capacity, that also enables chain abstraction. Because there's no bridge, like there's almost like you're bridging, but you don't even know it. It's like in the transaction that you're hitting, the bridge is happening so fast that that enables chain abstraction.
Yeah, to some extent. I think with a lot of teams, they're focusing first on like front end chain abstraction, where they abstract the network switching away on the front end. I don't think that's the end game though. I think that like this sort of like idea of like one liquidity layer that people interact with to perform actions on. Like, they don't even know which chains they're talking to. They're just doing things that they want to do on the chains that they end up talking to through this like intent networks. I think that's very clearly where we're going.
What's the ETA on that, buddy? End of the year? I think it's coming sooner than people think.
Chain abstraction? No. I think probably, I'm a timeline pessimist, by the way. I think probably at least 18 months before we see like actual usage and like people using like a chain abstraction network. And I think the main reason for that is, the reason for my pessimism is that I come from a long sort of like crypto long career of designing and researching new products, including like a bunch of scaling solutions, and these things just always end up taking way longer than you'd expect. So I'd say 18 months pretty optimistic as a when we start actually interacting with like fully abstracted blockchains.
Yeah, it's like Ethereum's like, yeah, it's coming. The EIP 4844 is coming soon. Similarly, you know,
They just actually, I saw today on Farcaster. I saw they announced the block at which they are expecting that fork to come. So that's exciting. So that's finally out. Usually they do hit those, but I think that's exactly right. Like I come from L2, and I think that back in 2017, people said that L2s were 2 months away for like 4 years. So I think that is sort of like the timeline I'm thinking in, or like that history tends to repeat.
Did you know that the Ethereum upgrades are actually named after stars in alphabetical order?
I would love to say yes, but I did not.
Yeah, I was watching this Coin Bureau video last night about Denku, and I was like, let's see, what are the normies getting told about this EIP 4844 upgrade? Because it's actually like somewhat technical to understand, like blobs and Danksharding and stuff.
Come on.
So like, how do you put that? Yeah, so we're not gonna dive too much into it, but I'm curious on a slightly different topic. Are you pretty bullish on Farcaster? Are you on Farcaster?
I've been trying it. It's actually really good. I've tried a bunch of the Web3 socials, and none of them has been as sticky as Farcaster. I think with a lot of them, I felt like I was continuously screaming into the void.
Yeah.
But on Farcaster, I've been finding that it's quite easy to connect to people, and also people that I've never talked to before that are like interacting on Farcaster. They're like proactive and active there. It's good. It's really good. I also like this concept of like programmable social media. It's once again empowering developers. So how could I not love it? But like that's the idea of like these frames, and I think that they have a real shot at like becoming proper mainstream.
Yeah, I like the idea where you can put a tweet or a post or a frame out, and well, the frames itself are next level for sure, because you can just interact on chain without really like you just have a wallet there, and it's all very natively embedded, which is awesome. But I like how you can post to different communities. So like if you have content,
it's like Reddit plus Twitter plus like some sort of like Web3 abstraction app. It's super cool. I think one thing that will really help if the bull market cycle sort of like commences as people are anticipating is like the airdrops that will come out of this will probably like get a bunch of normies over as well. Just to like, hey, like my friend made like $600 in the last week just by participating in these weird NFT drops. I should check that out.
Yeah. I agree. Airdrops are a wild marketing distribution mechanism for those outside the space. But I think contrary to that point, and an interesting point to take from a builder's perspective is actually, I think some of the reason why Friend Tech and such didn't survive was obviously the UX was trash, but I think they had such a financialized incentive mechanism of points and airdrop from day one. So that's kind of just led to their downfall. Whereas Farcaster has like warps and things, but like they're not very, it's not like I'm not using the app. And similarly, like to some of my favorite crypto protocols, I'm not using it because of the point system. I'm using it because it's like a necessity or because I just find good product market fit.
It has like a great financial sort of like, there's like this, it doesn't cross the line in financialization of the experience, right? Like it has like this, it threads the needle perfectly well.
Yeah, I agree. So when it comes to applications like that, like how would you look at taking off-chain data, something like Farcaster sentiment or Twitter sentiment, and like bring that on chain to like program like an algorithmic trading bot for trading based on Farcaster sentiment using SEDA?
Yeah, exactly. Well, love the question, first of all, because these are exactly the type of use cases that couldn't be done without SEDA at all, right? So I think that that's really great. So what you can do is you can like train an LLM on Farcaster data and then plug the API of the LLM into SEDA, and then you can query the LLM through any smart contract on any chain. So that's actually one of the things we're working on as well. Like we're reaching out to all of these, like, I don't know, like you can do like generative, you can with SEDA, you can do like generative art where you can actually mint. So what you do is like you send a transaction to like some generative art API, then take the outcome and immediately publish it on IPFS within like one SEDA transaction. And that way you have like truly on-chain minted AI prompt outcomes, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that's also super, super cool. And it's also something that's really not possible with any of the protocols that are out there today.
Nice. I love the AI plus Web3 use cases. I think we'll see a bunch of them in the nearest future.
Yeah, I'm very curious what is actually going to stick there.
Yeah, I would like to also speak about Farcaster a little bit, but yeah, I think one more thing I wanted to ask you about is modular oracles versus monolithic oracles. I think I read something about it, but didn't understand much. Can you explain something? And where is SEDA there?
Yes, so we are definitely on the modular side of things. It means, to me, what is a monolithic oracle? To me, a monolithic oracle would be an oracle where the oracle or the company behind it or the people behind it decide where it launches, when, what feeds, right? So it's like, hey, we just deploy a set of smart contracts to Solana and we are only supporting Solana, and like we're just pushing price feeds to Solana. That's in my opinion is more like a monolithic oracle. Then a modular oracle would be, we create a distribution mechanism for data in our own network, like SEDA, and then allow people to plug into that, right? Like just like how on Celestia, you can build a rollup using the OP stack and plug it into Celestia and publish data there and use it for data availability. And then you have like a working rollup that uses Celestia's 4DA permissionlessly. You can do that with SEDA, where you like then plug that rollup into real world data using like the proofer contract from SEDA.
So the future is modular.
Also, but not this cycle.
Why?
I think so. You need chain abstraction. That's the answer. You need chain abstraction for this to actually see like enough usage. Until then, Solana's great.
Yeah, I agree.
I think
like
honestly,
Say and Solana, you can't really compete with Say and Solana. I mean, Solana solely. But yeah, like if we're gonna have all these different app chains and all these different general purpose rollups, app specific rollups, Cosmos, like all this, man, there's no way we're having all these bridges for all this.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the bridges. SEDA is there, so no problem. Problem solved. Now it's just about user interaction, and it's going to be a nightmare. So all my normie friends are going to be using Solana instead, right? That's the reality, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to make a ton of money by investing in modular now, because obviously the next step is modular plus chain abstraction. So this is the time to invest in modular. But I think usage-wise, I think the monoliths are going to see more users this cycle.
Yeah, I'm bullish on Solana. Send that thing to 1,000, please. Make all the modular guys cringe and cry. But then
I'll take it.
We will oust Solana long term. But frankly, there's no modular rollup setup that can beat Solana right now. Not even like using Celestia, using different. You have to use the SVM. The SVM is super based for the modular stack, actually.
Just for now, I think in the future, what we'll see is you have these application-specific networks, and nobody will care what type of VM they're using because they're going to be optimized for one thing. SEDA is the first step towards this, right? Like we built completely, like it's using the Cosmos stack for some things, but then on top of that, we've built like our completely custom network to do Oracle, to build Oracle infrastructure really, really efficiently. And if you have like all of these like specialized L1s or L2s, then if you can like combine them together using chain abstraction or some sort of intent network correctly, then you have a chance of like beating the Solanas of this world, in my opinion. But you need like a basic sort of like critical mass of like infrastructure on the modular side to power this next step. And I think that we are near the end stage of all of those pieces of infrastructure going live. And now it's like, so, okay, in technology, you have like this idea of bundling and unbundling, right? So I think that what we saw is we had ETH, which was bundled. You have all of these like contracts on ETH, then becomes unsustainable. So people tried to optimize it, like either vertically, like Solana, or horizontally by unbundling. So unbundling takes longer. So you have like people are taking the best things of ETH, sort of like removing it, making specialized things that do these things separately. And then in the meantime, you have a great vertical scaling solution like Solana that can be used for the meantime. And I think that that is sort of like we're in the we're in the unbundling stage, but it's not evolved enough to actually become like usable by the masses.
I've heard that so many times in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to shift my modular messaging to the next level, where modularism, not maximalism, is now old school. You need to find some better marketing that's going to like take the cake again.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I saw Polygon was like aggregated. It was like monolithic, modular, now aggregated. Yeah, this guy.
No, that's just saying chain abstraction without saying chain abstraction.
So you're like mega bullish chain abstraction. Like that's what we need.
That's it. That's the end game.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's the internet. There you go.
Okay. So last maybe couple of questions before we wrap up. So what's your main challenge now as a co-founder of SEDA? Is it onboarding devs? Is it building tech? Is it something else? I don't know. Bear market.
Yeah, no, building the thing is the problem. What we're building is incredibly challenging. So finding the right people to build that with, and that's we need to ship. Or shipping. That's the challenge right now. What's really good is from the demand side, both from like it's like if you look at sort of like the funnel, you have like data providers, validators, data consumers, right? Data consumers are like either rollups or apps on rollups. Validators are people validating within the SEDA network, and data providers are people providing data to the network to then be sold to the consumers. Our pipelines are so full, like jam full, like people love what we're building. It feels really, really good to be on BD calls with our head of BD and just see like people, when we explain what we're doing, like with people building rollups, it just clicks and they're like, holy shit, like we need this. It's super rewarding, but now we just need to ship it and make sure that they can actually use it, right? So I think that from the business side, everything makes sense. Another sort of like fun sort of background story is we actually built many Oracle products before. So we built an optimistic modular Oracle before. Then we built a first-party Oracle, and that first-party Oracle, which is similar to Pyth, for example, right, or kind of like a closer to Chainlink or Pyth, and we had huge success there. So in 7 weeks, we grew from 0 total value secured, launching it, to $3.6 billion of total value secured. So we actually grew to be the second largest Oracle right after Chainlink during the last bull. So from like the business perspective, we know that we know when something has product market fit, and this product that we're having now has like all the signs that it has product market fit. So now it's just time to ship it.
Great. So congrats with the product market fit. If it
translates,
yeah.
Right? We launch it and if it translates, but the signs are there.
Okay. And are you gonna raise funds soon?
We don't need funds. We raised pretty good money. I think we want to ship first and see what and like get traction and then raise on that maybe. It's not super high on our list of priorities. We do get a lot of inbound interest because the narrative just makes sense right now. So that's great. So I don't know, like not high on the list of priorities, might happen soon, might happen a little bit later, but yeah, no hard plans on raising capital right now. We're not restricted.
What are your plans for Denver? What is the goal? Is it just I don't know, having good time? Is it biz dev?
No.
Is it hiring devs? Whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm sure we'll have an okay time, but conferences are pretty nuts. I think for us, it's mostly biz dev plus some like getting getting to talk to more founders building cool products and seeing how we can help them. Next to that, I also think we actually got our first launch coming up end of this quarter. So right after ETH Denver, probably. So we just kicked off audits today. And it will be sort of like the SEDA base layer with our token migration from ETH to SEDA that we were looking to launch in the next 6 weeks. So that is that's exciting. So I think mostly Denver will be go to some events, but also huddle up and make sure we get this thing live.
And you want to ask something else?
Honestly, man, I think I've had all of my questions answered. I think it's been a great pod, but happy to kind of take this in any direction for the remaining time. Yeah, I mean, I've had some good conversations with Jasper before. I'll also be in Denver. It'd be nice to link up, hang out, and also very much looking forward to doing biz dev, some content. But yeah.
Nice. See you all in Denver then.
Cool. Sounds great.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming on.